This goes live. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Monster Hunter Wilds. I'm actually trying to... Okay, there we go. Alright. I'm reading Quag Keep first, and then we're going to go on a hunt, because I had to upgrade my armor. Boy, did I have to upgrade my armor. I was getting devastated. Okay. That being said, for the beginning here, we're going to be reading Quag Keep Chapter 8, Black Death Defied. Milo smashed his shield into the gaping long-fanged mask of Beast Fury, at the same time thrusting his sword. Then, out of nowhere, Afrida spiraled, darting at the bleeding head as she had when she was harassing the druid. The Agant drew back on its haunches. Like Crescent. Its head swung up to watch the pseudo-dragon for an instant. Milo took advantage of that slight second or two of distraction, as he had during the struggle with the master of these things. He launched a full arm swing at the creature's column neck. The steel bit speared halfway through the flesh and bone. With a shriek, the Argont, paying no attention to its fearful wound, launched itself again at Milo. Though the swordsman brought up his shield, swiftly the force of its body striking against his bore him back. He felt Yvel tumble as his weight slammed against her. Claws raked around the edge of the shield, caught and tore the mail covering his sword arm, piercing the leather shirt beneath, bit into his flesh with a hot agony. But he did not lose his grip on his sword, nor had the fury of it he attacked wiped away the practiced tactics his body seemed to know better than his mind. Milo thrust the shield once more against the half-severed head, with strength enough to rock the creature. In spite of pain, which at this moment seemed hardly a real part of him, he brought up his sword, cutting down at the narrow skull. The steel jarred against bone, but did not stop at the barrier. He was a little amazed in one part of his mind at his success as the besmeared steel cut deeper. Despite wounds that would have finished any beast, Milo knew the Ungant was near to charging him again. Now the swordsman's hand was slippery with blood until he feared the hilt would turn in his grip. Shielded up and down, he beat at the maimed head and crushing blows. The body twisted, broken-headed, blind. The thing still fought to reach him. It might not be the dead, but it was nearly out of the fight. Milo swung around. It had taken his full strength to play out that encounter. Strength that, until this very moment, he had never realized he possessed. Yvel, weapon-wise as she was, how would she fare? To his surprise, the metal-maid stood looking down at the second heaving body. Implanted in its elongated throat was her sword. One forepaw had been severed. From the stumped, sputtering dark blood to the puddle in the ground, Milo drew a deep breath of wonder. That they had won, almost he could not believe that. The raw fury radiated still by the dying creature struck against him, as if they could still use fang and claw. He heard a heavy grunting and glanced beyond. The giant boar, sides showing at least 2 blood-swelling slits made by claws, nosed a pile of ripped skin. Youngant, Yvel, had down, snapped viciously as the battle-maid coolly drew her steel free of its body. She avoided a small lunge, which sent the blood pumping faster from the wounds, and used the edge of her weapon, striking full upon the narrow head with 2 quick blows. But even then, the thing did not die. The warhead was Milo's own opponent finished. Only the torn body the wereboar had shredded lay still. The boar trotted to the water's edge. For the first time, Milo remembered their captives. Neither man was in sight, and their weapons were gone from where they had been thrown. He swung around to look into the fringe of the trees. The crossbow had vanished, still strapped to the saddle of the horse that had fled. So they need not fear any silent bolt out of the cover to cut them down. Where? Milo turned swiftly at the warning. Nail Fangtooth, not the boar, stood there once more, his axe in his hand. But his warning had been needed. The mangled thing Milo had thought in the throes of death, which should have been dead, was gathering its body for another spring. Axe ready, upraised, the berserker advanced a couple of strides. The weapon rose and fell twice, shearing both heads from their bodies. As the last flew a foot or so away from the fury of the blows, Nail gave an exclamation. One hand went to his side, where Milo was aware that his sword arm now burned, as if a portion of it had been held in the flames of an empty fire. Marked you too? The berserker glared at Milo's mitted hand. Blood showed in a rusty rim around the edge of the mitten. These beasts. He kicked the head he had just parted from the body away from him. May have some poison in them, so they are gone, eh? He had apparently noted the absence of the prisoners also. Yvel answered him. To be set afoot here is no fate I would wish on any, even in of chaos. Milo remembered the screaming of their own hidden horses, which had alerted them to the attack. The three might now be faced by an ambush in the net of trees, but it would be well to find their mounts and ride. Elfrida had been dipping and wheeling out over the water, her hissing sounding like self-congratulation at their own part in the battle. Now she came to Nail. He winced again as he raised his fist to her to perch upon, holding her near the level of his eyes. Though Milo caught no rumble of voice from the berserker, he was sure that the other was in communication with his small companion. The pseudo-dragon launched from his fist, whirled upward in a spiral, and then shot off under the trees. If those skulking cowards plan to play some game, Nail remarked, Elfrida will let us know. But let us now make sure that we are not also afoot. Milo wiped his sword on a bush and sheathed it with his left hand. It hurt to stoop to pick up his battered shield, on which most of the painted symbols had now been scratched and defaced. The fire in his arm did not abate, and he found that his fingers were numb. He worked his right hand into the front of his belt to help keep the arm immobile as he could, for the slightest movement made the flame pain worse. Grimly, he set his thought on something else, using a trick he had learned when he had marched with the adepts of Neum. The pain could be set aside by a man concentrating on other things. How much they could depend upon the pseudo-dragon's scouting, he was not sure, but Nail's complete confidence, and what he himself had seen this day, when she had flown with intelligence and shrewdness to aid their battles, was reassuring. He cut through the trees to where they had left their mounts, only to face what Milo had feared from the first moment he had heard those screams. A sick taste rose from his mouth as he saw the mangled bodies. The Ungans had not lingered at killing, but the mauling of unfortunate horses had been coldly complete. Not even their gear could be sorted out through the mess. The fate Yvel had not wished, even on sworn enemy, was now theirs also. They were afoot in territory there was no where there was no refuge. And now, and how far ahead their comrades rode, they could not even guess. Yvel gave one level-eyed glance at what lay there. There was a pinched line about her mouth, and she turned her head quickly. But Nell approached more closely, with Milo leaning against the trunk of a tree, and fought his battle against admitting pain into their mind. The berserker gave a snort of disgust. "Nothing of the supplies left," he commented. "We are lucky there is a river. Now we had best be on the move. There are scavengers who can scent such frightened beasts." Milo only half heard him. Along the river, yes. It was to be their guide of their party north, and at least they would not go without water. Water! For a moment, the fire in his arm seemed to touch his throat. He needed water. What if, he fizzed the words out, there are more than 3 of those things? If there had been, we would have already known, returned Nail. He ran his fingertips with an old gesture as he feared to realize a touch down his side. They do not hunt singly, and since the druid summoner is ground to dust, he cannot call them down upon us again. Milo stood away from his tree. Back to the river, then? He tried to get the right note of purpose into his voice, but it was a struggle. Nell's suggestion that the claws of those black devils might be poisoned aided his mind. He had taken wounds in plenty, with scars on his body to prove it, but he could not recall any pain as steady and consuming as this before. Perhaps washing the gash out with cold water would give some relief. Twice he stumbled and might have fallen. Then a hand slipped under his arm, took his shield, and tossed it to Nail, who caught it in one fist as if he weighed nothing. Yvel drew Milo's arm across her own mailed shoulder, withstanding his short struggle to free himself. His sight grew hazy with each faltering step, and in the end he yielded to her will. He did not remember reaching the river, though he must have done so. On his mail, his leather, and his linen undershirt had been stripped away, and Yvel was dripping water onto the gash along his arm, from which the blood oozed and congealed in drops. So small a gash, yet this pain, the lightness in his head. Poison? Did Milo say that word out loud? He did not know. Yvel leaned down, raised his arm, held it firm while she sucked along the slash and spat, her smeared lips shaping no distaste for what she did. Then Nail, his great hairy body bare to the waist, gashes longer than that which broke Milo's skin, visible near his ribs, loomed into the swordsman's limited field of vision. Will Milo get out of this? We will find out next time as we continue Quag Keep, Chapter 8. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you for listening. I will see you in the near future. If you're watching this on Twitch, we're going to continue in just a moment.